again. I'm Dr. Lynn Fox, and we are continuing to look at teacher expectations and student achievement. We are now on interaction number 12 in Strand C, personal regard. So I just want to go back a little bit because, as you know, TESA is hierarchical and sequential. And I want to look at the hierarchy in Strand C. First, we started with just getting close to students in a space that is comfortable for them and for you. And TESA defines proximity within 1 arm's length distance. So think about that far out. And you're just basically in their space, but not really in their space. And there's no threat, there's no negative, it's all positive, and it's just that they're comfortable being near you. Then we moved on, and as we go down the list, as you can see on the slide, is we then went into courtesy, and where we treat our students, all of them, with, please and thank you and respect that we would like to get from them, and we would also like for them to share with one another and behave with one another. Then we continued on, and we were in the 9th interaction when we were really having an opportunity to find out more about individual students in the class. And once again, remember, TESA is about all students. So that's where we kind of had an opportunity to go outside the classroom through our homework assignments and things like that to find out a little bit more about what kinds of things they may be doing, hopefully that are positive, that we could bring into the classroom. And again, it be an opportunity for us to get to know them better and for other students in the class to get to know them better. Because so often, especially with low achievers or students that are having a hard time in school, that's not where they're succeeding. They may have a job and doing a really good work at, and very diligent and all of that outside the classroom. So if we can bring that in, that raises their self-esteem and also their status in the classroom. Today we're going to talk about touching. Now, touching is a touchy subject because most people don't want to talk about it. And many schools, they have policies, but most people, teachers, may or may not know what they are, and times are a-changing. So when TESA talks about touching, and what I'm going to be talking about today, is they're talking about appropriate physical interaction with the student. Now, the main thing here with TESA, if you are doing, high fives and you're doing knuckle taps and you're patting somebody on the back, usually we do that with high achievers and students that are more positive, because remember, you're creating a bonding that takes place in the classroom as well as in the rest of the world. So what is appropriate? Well, 2 things are inappropriate, and I just want to bring them up right up front. Anything that has a sexual connotation to it, totally zip, no. Number 2 is anything that would give the student an idea. Remember, you've already developed a relationship with him or her, that it is punishment. You are going to hurt them. You are going to touch them. You are going to punch them. You're going to do anything that could be taken as a negative, okay? Now, let's take this a little bit further. First of all, if you do appropriate touching with other students and the school or in the school districts allow this, then it's important that you're able to do that with all students. Remember, equal opportunity, because that is a really nice thing if they allow it. Some students, as we've talked about before, are tactically defensive, and there are other cultural things you need to take into consideration. But let's talk about some of the strategies and things that if you decide to touch, that means you're going to have that same opportunity. All the students have that opportunity to have that relationship with you. Then what would be some of the things that I would say would be okay? Well, one would be a high five. One would be knuckle tapping. One would be, touching them on the back or getting closer than the 1 arm's length distance in the classroom. One thing is you could be down and kneel down beside them and you're showing them something on assignment that they're involved in. Another could be you pull up your seat and you're seated closer to them and you're working appropriately on the task at hand. There are actually many, many things, but bottom line that I just want to make very, very clear is the appropriateness and the equity, and that life involves touching, and it doesn't have to be the negative side. So that's where Tessa's coming from and where we're coming from. Sandra is going to share information with you on other ideas and perspective of some of the things that have happened in her own teaching. So I look forward to seeing you next time, and have a great day and practice this behavior if appropriate.
Hello again. Now we're dealing with TESA number 12, which deals with touching. And as Dr. Fox has already indicated, what's really important is for the teacher to be sensitive to the cultural differences in the classroom. And I think that's very challenging. And some of the things that are important that we do deal with in our little book on pages 79 and 80 have more to do with the nonverbal approach, and they're important pieces because it's not always what you say, but it's the tone and the way you're using your body language. So the ability to just smile makes a big difference when you're approaching a student and getting within an arm's length distance from them. Another one that's important is just to be empathetic in a sincere manner, not phony, to show interest, to show, as we've just completed number 11 on listening, that you do hear the student and that you're not in any way presenting any sort of a threat to them, and they can feel comfortable. I think what's important, particularly if you are a substitute teacher, is to recognize that, well, you may not have background knowledge about your students, and that these cultural differences can make a difference. In a setting where perhaps you had been able to establish a relationship with your students in advance, and you know how close you can get to them, and there's a level of comfort for both you and the student, you wouldn't know if you were a sub. So what I would suggest is that you try to have a similar demeanor, which is friendly but not overly so, because that really wouldn't be appropriate, and that you do restrict any sort of touching, particularly if you have any signals from the student that they're uncomfortable. But generally speaking, just your attitude toward them, that you are interested and wanting to hear from them, will make a big difference in how they react to you getting into even close to their personal space. And with that, we are going to go on to the next step in the TESA model.